to create some more content for you. He's talking about some directors he knows. These are the Teenage Film Snob hiatus shows.
Welcome to Ours, a Teenage Film Snob. I'm James Chalmers, your friendly neighbourhood film snob, and we are continuing the director series. As I continue to record these, I think of more and more directors I want to talk about, which is good news for me and good news for you, because it means the content will keep flowing whilst I continue on my hiatus. At this point, it almost feels like I'm not on hiatus because all I'm doing is pumping out content, but that is beside the point. It's been a busy week. The last recording I did, I mentioned that I was talking to someone about extreme cinema, and I recorded that episode, so by the time this is out, that episode will have dropped, and it was a lot of fun. You know, it was a lot of fun talking to Sensory from the UK and her love of extreme film, and I think we navigated those waters pretty well. There are a couple of topics that were a little bit, extreme, as the name would suggest, but all in all, I think it was a pretty good episode. She was lovely, and hopefully, as of now, you will have heard it and you dug it as well. But there will be a trigger warning on that one. Today, I'm diving into another director that I really like. We've talked about Robert Eggers, we've talked about Rob Zombie, we've talked about James Gunn, we've talked about someone else that I'm forgetting right now, but that's okay because I've recorded them already, so we're all good there. I am diving into the work of another director that I really like, of course, and what really surprised me is how many films this guy has made. I was kind of shocked. I knew he'd done a couple. I thought his filmography was only going to be, 4, maybe 5. But we have 8 films. And as I look at the list, I'm like, of course, I've seen all of these films. So, of course, he's one of my favorite directors. And, of course, he has this many films because I have seen them all. We're going to the UK today. We've spent a lot of time focusing on American directors. So we're going to head over to the UK. It's not Edgar Wright. I have decided to postpone my Edgar Wright episode because there is one film of his I haven't seen. It's a documentary called The Sparks Brothers. I've got it on order. It should arrive in the next week or so. Once that Blu-ray arrives, I'll watch that documentary, and then I'll be able to rate and rank all of my Edgar Wright films, with the exception of The Running Man, which comes out later this year at the time of recording. By the time you hear that, it'll probably come out, and then I'll have to go in and make changes. But instead, I'm talking about the wonderful director, Matthew Vaughn. If you don't know the name, it's going to blow your mind how many films that you love that he's made, because he's been around for a while. His first role in the film industry was not as director. He served as Guy Ritchie's producer, so was involved in Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels. He was involved in Snatch. And then in the mid-2000s, he stepped away to do his own thing and create his own films. And I really love Matthew Vaughn's sensibility as a director. I love his storytelling. I really like... There's almost like this marriage between American and British filmmaking styles, because you've got the fast-paced editing and action of a British crime film with the American sense of humor injected in, which I really, really enjoy. He's a fantastic filmmaker. I think he is a little bit underrated, simply because I don't think he's a household name. If you know about film like I do, and most of you do listening, you probably have heard his name, but the general audience, I think, probably don't know his name the way they would some of the, the way people know Quentin Tarantino, the way people know Steven Spielberg, the way people know Martin Scorsese. Those names are just a little bit bigger and, more commonly known. Matthew Vaughn tends to be less of a public personality and a lot more of the kind of filmmaker who lets his films do the talking, lets the actors promote the films, and kind of sits in the back a little bit more, which I really respect. I like that. Ironically, as a guy who puts himself front and center in every single podcast and can't stop talking. So Matthew Vaughn has 8 films that we're going to talk about today. The same rules apply. I'm only talking about feature films. Anything that I have only seen once is going to be lower on the list because I haven't given it a second viewing yet, so I don't want to rank it prematurely. I'll give it a second view and then maybe I'll check it out later, maybe make some changes. But this is an action-packed film. He tends to make more adult or mature stories, tend to be quite violent, tend to have a lot of cursing, and a lot of sexy jokes. There are a few exceptions to the rule, but all in all, very much like his partner in crime in the 90s, Guy Ritchie, very similar sensibilities. Although I would say whilst we never like to compare or rank directors against each other, I think I do prefer the work of Matthew Vaughn slightly. Nothing against Guy Ritchie, his work is wonderful, but I think overall Matthew Vaughn is a more consistent director. So, with that being said, we're going to dive straight into it. At number 8, I'm going to put The Kingsman, or The Kingsman. This is the prequel to Kingsman: The Secret Service. This is the one that's set about 100 years earlier. We have the origins of the Kingsman organization. It's during, I want to say it's World War II. And we've got Rasputin, the Mad Monk, as one of the villains. And the main reason it's so low is because, yes, I've only seen it once. And 2, I don't really remember that much about it. I remember thinking it was fine. I also remember I was quite unwell and bedridden when I watched it, which would have impacted my enjoyment as well. There are 2 more Kingsman movies planned at this stage. I was looking through his filmography before. I think we're getting to the stage with this franchise where it's not feeling as fresh and exciting anymore. Not to say the films aren't good, but that first film, and I'll talk about that first film a little bit later, was such a joyful surprise. I knew nothing about it. I wasn't aware of it. And we're now 3 films deep into the franchise with another 2 to come. And I think when you do get something as surprising as that first film, it's hard to maintain that level of excitement, that level of wow factor. But The Kingsman does do a few things I wasn't expecting. There is a bait and switch. There is a big twist in the middle of the film I was not expecting to happen. And that left my jaw on the floor. So, as I've said with all my previous lists, this is not a bad film. This is not a film I dislike. Just compared to the rest of the filmography and the amount of viewings I've had of the film, it's a little bit lower. But I would still 100% recommend watching The Kingsman, but watch it after the first one. Coming in at 7th place, I'm sticking with the franchise. I'm going with Kingsman: The Golden Circle. This flick was a film I was rabid for. I was so excited for this sequel. I could not wait. I really liked that first one quite a bit. Maybe more than quite a bit, which we'll talk about later. And so when they announced a sequel, when it was coming out, I could not wait to go and watch it. I loved the character of Eggsy. I wanted to see more of his adventures. They were going to the US. Channing Tatum was in it. Jeff Bridges was in it. Julianne Moore was in it. I was really, really excited. And it's fine. I've only seen it the one time as well. I do own it. I've got to rewatch it and give it another go. I think this was much more a case of me not able to manage my own expectations. I was so hyped for it. There was no way the film could have lived up to the expectations I had set for myself and for this film. Pardon me. I do really enjoy it. I think it's really fun. I do think it leans on some of the tricks that the first one did. Not as a crutch so much, but instead of trying to keep pushing the envelope or go into new, different directions, it felt very much the same thing. There wasn't too much new in it that I can remember. It's been a long time since I've seen it. So again, lower rankings, I've only seen it one time. But not to say it's not an enjoyable film. I really, really like it. I really liked the further adventures of these characters. However, I just wanted more of the first one, I think. And this one, there was no surprise. There was no shock. There was no unexpected reveal the way the first one did. So, really good film. Got to watch it again. Definitely encourage you to check it out. And I've only seen it once, so I need to check it out again as well. But I'm very comfortable with being in 7th place. Something has to be in 7th place. I think Kingsman: Golden Circle is the worthy film there. Jumping into 6th, this is the last of Matthew Vaughn's films I've only seen once. So 3 of them I've only seen once. The remaining 5 I've seen multiple times. And I'm going with his most recent film. This film is from 2024. This is a film called Argylle. It stars Henry Cavill as the fictional character Argylle, Bryce Dallas Howard, who is a spy novelist. She writes these wonderful novels about this mysterious spy called Argylle. And then she gets sucked into a real-life spy conspiracy because they think that what she's writing on the page is somehow predicting real-world spy events. Sam Rockwell is in it as well, and of course he is wonderful. And I am blanking on the rest of the cast. As I said, it has been a minute. This was Matthew Vaughn's lowest rated film on IMDb. It had very mixed reviews, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. It's the first of his films, I think, in a long time that didn't go for the R rating. It went for a more general audience. And I think fans of his earlier work were maybe a little bit disappointed that he censored himself or he kind of toned it down. But I liked that I had a spy film made by Matthew Vaughn that I could take, maybe not my 5-year-old daughter to, but if she was 10, I could take her to it. I like it's a spy film that I could take my dad to go and see. My dad's not big into a lot of violence and a lot of cursing, so a lot of Matthew Vaughn's films wouldn't appeal to him, but Argyle would be right up my dad's street. So I do like all of that. I really enjoy what they did there. It's really fun. You can't take it too seriously. You need to know that as well. It needs to be, appreciate it for what it is. And it has the most stunning post-credit sequence that really took it over the edge for me when they revealed what they revealed in that post-credit. And I won't spoil it for you. I was like, oh, is this where we're going? So I really enjoyed that as well. But I don't have much more to say on it because I haven't seen it in 18 months. It never got a physical release here in Australia. I don't think it's had a physical release anywhere that I'm aware of, so I'll have to look into that. But I would love to watch it again. I really enjoyed Argyle, and I think it was very unfairly critiqued. So let's dive into the final 5, and these are the films of Matthew Vaughn I've seen multiple times. These are all relatively interchangeable, just like with my James Gunn list in the last episode. I could watch any of these any day of the week and my ranking would probably change. These are his earliest films. These are the 5 that he made in a row. This is the hot streak of Matthew Vaughn. These were made between the year 2004, pardon me, and 2015, I want to say. And he had quite a decade of wonderful films. Not to say the other 3 aren't wonderful, but these I think of as primo, creme de la creme, the best of Matthew Vaughn. So in 5th place, we're going to his debut film, 2004's Layer Cake. Layer Cake stars Daniel Craig in one of his earlier film roles, Michael Gambon, who you may remember as Dumbledore from the Harry Potter films. And it's basically this mob film about this guy played by Daniel Craig who's trying to infiltrate the mob and learn more about it, and there's drug dealings and all sorts of stuff going on. It's quite convoluted in the best possible way. It's been a minute since I've watched it, so I don't remember all the intricacies of the plot, but what I remember from seeing it more than anything else was, wow, there's someone out here now doing what Guy Ritchie does at the same level as Guy Ritchie, and that's what this film is. It feels like someone else taking on a Guy Ritchie film and exceeding expectations. I don't have much more to say on it because I am a little bit vague of the plot points as of right now. But I will say it has one of the most surprising endings. All time feels a little bit of an exaggeration, but it has a very surprising ending, very unexpected. I didn't know where the film was going. And because it came out 2 years before Casino Royale, I used to always get the endings of those 2 films mixed up because it's a younger Daniel Craig. They're only 2 years apart, and I used to think that Casino Royale had the most bonkers ending ever, and it does have a pretty bonkers ending, but this one, I think, takes the cake for sure. No pun intended. But if you haven't seen Layer Cake, you really are missing out. It's a wonderful crime film, some really excellent performances, very fast-paced, and a good tone setter for the career that would follow. I really like Layer Cake. Jumping into 4th position, and we're rattling through these, probably because I don't have strong opinions on the first few, but I imagine as we get closer to number 1, I'm going to talk a lot more. In 4th position, this I would say is his only family film. It's based on a novel by Neil Gaiman. Regardless of how you feel about Neil Gaiman, regardless of what's been going on in the media and his personal life, we have to keep, I think, art and artist separated, and it doesn't impact my enjoyment of this film. This is a movie called Stardust, and it's basically a modern fairy tale. Charlie Cox, who you may know as Daredevil in the MCU, plays a young man who sees a star fall from the sky and land on the other side of a fence in his small village, and when he gets to the star, he's not greeted by something an object from space, a rock or anything like that, but a young woman played by Claire Danes, and he's immediately smitten. He falls in love with her, but he has to work with her and keep her protected, because once she lands, everyone wants this star. Stars contain magical powers, and they want that magic for themselves. In particular, a witch played by Michelle Pfeiffer, her and her sisters, in a very similar plot line to Hocus Pocus, trying to track down this star and take her youth so they can be young and beautiful and dominate the land. There's an incredible performance by Robert De Niro, maybe one of my favorite Robert De Niro performances because it's so unexpected. Robert De Niro plays a pirate, this nasty pirate who captains this airship, this wonderful airship, and it flies around, and he's the most feared, pirate in all the land, and the only person people are more scared of than, this pirate played by Robert De Niro is Michelle Pfeiffer. And then behind the scenes, it turns out he's very effeminate. I can't remember if he is actually gay or if it's just heavily inferred. I can't remember. But he's this real sweetheart of a man. He likes to dress up in scarves and dresses and wear makeup and jewelry. And it's so genuinely lovely, and it's not poking fun or misrepresenting. It's very much, it's very playful in kind of, people aren't always what they seem, and it's wonderful. And it's just a rollicking adventure. It feels thematically very similar to Princess Bride, which of course is another wonderful film. But Stardust is kind of a more modern version of that. And I don't care who you are. I don't care what your tastes are. Stardust is a genuine crowd pleaser. I think you would have a lot of fun with Stardust. And even though we've only been going for 15, 16 minutes, we're getting into the top 3. But boy, do I have opinions about these movies. In third place, and these 3 really are the most interchangeable. Stardust and Layer Cake I really love. I don't watch them as often as I would like. These top 3 I have seen probably at least 10 times each. And I think these as the jewel in the crown for Matthew Vaughn. I think these 3 films are his thesis. They're his mission statement. If you want to see what Robert Vaughn can do with a camera and with a film crew and with a script, I would point you to any one of these 3 films. And in third place, we're going with Kick-Ass. Kick-Ass is an adaptation of a Mark Millar comic about a young boy in high school. He's a bit of a loser. He's a bit of an in-betweener. He's not really popular. He's a big comic book fan. Him and his friends go to the comic book store after school, and he always wonders why no one tried to be a superhero in real life. He doesn't get it. His mother died when he was young, but it wasn't at the hands of some supervillain. It was just an unexpected tragedy. I've noticed that I've used the word unexpected a lot in this episode. And he talks about how there was never a quest for vengeance. It was just, he moved on. He just moved on and dealt with the fact that he had no mum. He's got a very loving father. His father is one of the most beautiful characters in a film like this. He's so genuine and cares for his son, just wants his son to do well and get through high school. We've got Aaron Taylor-Johnson in the lead role, Mark Strong as our villain, and he's fantastic. I can't remember the character's name, but he's the crime boss in this city, and he is a real mean, nasty piece of work. Mark Strong is one of my favourite actors. I don't think he's underrated, but I don't think people talk about him as much as they should. And the thing I love about Mark Strong is he can play villainous and lovable at the flip of a switch. He's just amazing. We also have Chloe Grace Moritz in her first ever role. This was her debut, and this was a controversial film and a very talked about film at the time because we had an 8-year-old or a 10-year-old girl using the C word, and that was part of their marketing campaign. And boy, did it work. Like, it got people so excited about it. We also have Christopher Mintz-Plasse, who you will know as McLovin from Superbad. He plays Red Mist. He plays, he's the son of Mark Strong, and he also wants to be a superhero. And unlike Aaron Taylor-Johnson's character, he comes from a wealthy family, so he can get a really cool costume and a car, and he can do all the posing. But the difference is that Aaron Taylor-Johnson's character has heart, and he believes in what he's doing. So it doesn't matter that he doesn't look fancy because he's going to go ahead and give it his all. And then his first ever mission, he's walking around the streets and he sees someone trying to break into a car. He gets beaten up terribly, like within an inch of death, and he's hospitalized, and he has steel rods put into his arms and legs and his back, and it ends up benefiting him. His pain receptors don't work the way they used to, so he might not be the most skilled fighter. He doesn't have any powers, but he can take a beating now because of all these replacements. Christopher Mintz-Plasse, the Red Mist, does not have this. And finally, Nicolas Cage in the role of Big Daddy, whose design is very much inspired by Batman, inspired by The Dark Knight. And Nicolas Cage is doing an Adam West impression, and it's brilliant. It's one of my favorite Nicolas Cage roles. It's very silly, but he's playing it so earnestly. And it's just this wonderful take on superheroes. It was sold as a more grounded, realistic superhero film, and for a while it is, but once the other characters start coming in, once jetpacks start coming into it and insane fight sequences start coming into it, it does obviously abandon reality, which is not a bad thing, not at all. But if you're looking for a really grounded superhero film, I would recommend Super, which I talked about in my James Gunn episode. This one's a little bit more playful, it's a little bit more silly, but the fights are really good. It's a really heartfelt movie, even though it's a dirty, nasty comedy with filthy language and sex jokes and a lot of violence. The beating heart in the center of Dave just wanting to be the best hero possible, just wanting to stand up for what's right, trying to save, people who are subject to violence and crime. It's really quite a beautiful film. The score is fantastic. There's some really great music by The Prodigy in there. Flying Home, which was composed by Marcus Fries, is one of my favorite pieces of score at all time. I used to play it at the gym. If I'm ever feeling down, I need to get pepped up, I'll play it because it's such a positive 90-second clip of music. It's really, really good. And I think it holds up incredibly well. It's funny. It's got a great heart, as I mentioned. It's a great hero story and hero's journey, watching someone who considers himself a nobody to grow and become the hero they want to be and to inspire others. It doesn't take any prisoners with the violence. Mark Strong is a character in a very different world to Kick-Ass. Kick-Ass is just a guy in a scuba suit just trying to, save cats out of trees and help people across the road and stuff like that. Mark Strong is a brutal gangster. He puts bullets in heads. There's a sequence where they find a snitch within their organization and he throws them in an industrial-sized microwave. Like, it is a full-on, violent, gory film. And my favorite sequence in the entire film is a moment where, and spoilers for a 15-year-old movie, is where Mark Strong and his gang have abducted Kick-Ass and Big Daddy, and they put them in chairs and they put this live stream on, and they're showing the world. This is what happens when you become a hero and you get involved in other people's affairs. You get kidnapped and you get killed. And they strap into these chairs and they light them on fire. And Hit Girl, played by Chloe Grace Moretz, infiltrates the warehouse, and Nicolas Cage is sending out code words to her using different comic book references. And she's able to take down this warehouse of guys all by herself. It's the Batman vs. Superman warehouse scene before that scene existed. Kick-Ass is wonderful. It's a really great flick. There are about 4 graphic novels, I think, detailing the adventures of Dave, and then they did a reboot years later. We've only had 2 films. I would gladly watch more. But I would like Matthew Vaughn to return to the franchise. He didn't direct the second one. I think the second one is good, but the first one I think is amazing. All right. Heading into number 2, we're talking about, I think it's another Mark Millar comic book, actually. This film blew me away. This is a film I did not see coming. I knew nothing about it. I was given free passes. So my wife and I went to the film, and about 30 minutes into the movie, I was like, this feels like a James Bond film if the guy who directed Kick-Ass made it. That's exactly what it was. It was called The Kingsman: The Secret Service, starring Taron Egerton in one of his earlier roles. Mark Strong, Michael Caine, I think, is in it, Colin Firth. And basically it's the story of this Londoner, this dirtbag kid who gets into a little bit more trouble than he should. And then through circumstance is recruited by a spy, a member of the Kingsmen, the King's Guard, played by Colin Firth, and he takes him to this training camp and he gets them to join, and he learns how to be a spy. And what they're doing is they're going through all these wonderful prospects around the UK, and they're trying to find the next elite member to join the Kingsmen. And a big part of the film is just the recruitment phase, going through the different training, him not getting along with the other people. It was very reminiscent of Men in Black. And if you remember in Men in Black, where Will Smith is so unlike everyone else in the recruitment phase, it's very much the same thing. They're all very serious. They're athletes. They're academics. And Taron Egerton's character, Eggsy, is just not that at all. He steals cars. He boosts stereos and stuff like that. But when push comes to shove, when his mettle is tested, he can stand up and show what he can do. The other side of this story is behind the scenes, whilst they're recruiting new members of the Kingsmen, there's this international terrorist played by Samuel L. Jackson in a really fun performance. He plays this billionaire terrorist who speaks with a lisp, and he's afraid of blood, and he's just insane. And he's developed this technology where if you play this frequency, it infects the people who hear it with rage, and they just start killing people and killing each other. And the whole idea that behind his plot is he wants to recruit him and his wealthiest friends and hide them away while they unleash this frequency on the world and let the world tear itself apart. And then from the ashes, they will rebuild their version of a utopia. It's very much a James Bond type plot. But unlike a James Bond film, loaded with cursing, loaded with a lot of violence. The standout scene, I don't think anyone would disagree with this, is Colin Firth goes to this church to investigate what's going on with the frequency and try to find out what's going on. And he hears it, and there's this wonderful montage of him just taking out people left and right in this Southern Belle style church. And it's very violent and upsetting, but also very entertaining. It's a really great flick. I give it the edge over Kick-Ass. I like Kick-Ass a lot, obviously, from all I was saying there, but I think this takes everything Matthew Vaughn learned from Kick-Ass and refines it and polishes it and presents it in a new and interesting way. And I do really love Taron Egerton in this role. The kind of watching his character growth from being this dirtbag kid to this refined gentleman, this gentleman spy. Plus Colin Firth, any day of the week, you want to see him. And this might be my favourite Colin Firth role. I know that he's done classy films. I know that he's been in stuff like Bridget Jones and Love Actually, and he played a king and all this sort of stuff. My favourite Colin Firth performance is Kingsman: The Secret Service. It's very close to my favourite film with Matthew Vaughn's. On any given day, it could be my favourite film. It's a really, really wonderful flick. Very entertaining, not for kids, not for those who are faint of heart when it comes to blue language or violence, but if you can stomach it, oh my goodness, are you in for a grand old time. It's a really fun movie. Which brings me to number one. My number one favourite film by Matthew Vaughn is not only my favourite Matthew Vaughn film, it's also one of my favourite comic book films, it's one of my favourite Marvel films, and it is my favourite X-Men film. And this is the movie X-Men First Class. I was born in the late 80s, I grew up in the 90s, so I was there for the first wave of modern, superhero films. I was there for the Burton Schumacher era of Batman. I was there for the Sam Raimi Spider-Man. I was there for the Brett Ratner and Bryan Singer X-Men films. I was there for all of those. And after The Last Stand, which I really like, I think X-Men Last Stand is very underrated. But after Last Stand, they took a break for 5 years. They did a Wolverine movie in the middle, Wolverine Origins, in 2009. But they hadn't done much with the X-Men franchise for a while. And then in 2011, they talked about rebooting. And I don't consider it really a reboot. I think it's part of the same timeline. The timelines do get a little bit messy with the X-Men films due to some of the casting and some of the decisions made. But they decided to go back to the origins of the team. They wanted to strip it back And X-Men First Class introduces us to a 1960s X-Men team. We meet a young Charles Xavier before he's in the wheelchair, before he's lost his hair. We meet an Eric Lencher Magneto who is just discovering to use his powers, and he hasn't quite mastered them yet. We meet a young Raven Darkholme, Mystique, as a child. And basically what this film is, it's set on the backdrop of the Cuban Missile Crisis, how the world is on the brink of war. And in this movie, we see the X-Men assemble for the first time. And this is an X-Men team where Magneto and Professor X, Charles Xavier, work together. They work for the military, they join the CIA, and they help them out with missions. And they're fighting against a common enemy, Sebastian Shaw, who's the leader of the Hellfire Club. He actually has the telekinetic helmet that would go to Magneto because he has Emma Frost on his team, who's a telepath and also can turn her body into diamonds, played by January Jones, who's fantastic in the film. And it's just such an unexpected take on the genre. Because yes, it is a comic book film, it's a superhero film. We have these mutants with magic powers. But it just feels so earnest, so real. There's a great cameo by Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. It's probably the biggest laugh in the film. But what I love about it is it's a celebration of these young misfits who don't know who they are. They don't have a grasp on their identity. They're trying to figure out how they can work in the modern world, or their version of the modern world, where no one wants them there. And that's what the X-Men films have always been about. They've always been about identity. They've always been about living on the fringes, being an outsider, being a member of the LGBTQ community. And this, I think, is the best execution of it. Rose Byrne shows up as Moira McTaggart. James McAvoy as Professor X. Michael Fassbender as Magneto. And it's just brilliant. Brilliant, brilliant. There is not a scene in this flick that I would change. We have Nicholas Hoult as Hank McCoy Beast, previously played by Kelsey Grammer. And this, I think, was one of his first film roles outside of the show Skins. He started in Skins, which was a BBC show or a British show. And Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique, and it's just so much fun. I really like X-Men First Class. I know there's a lot of arguments for Days of Future Past. I do like Days of Future Past. I think First Class is the best X-Men film, the best team film. If we're going solo films, Logan, for sure. But X-Men First Class, for me, is just head and shoulders above the rest of the films. I like all the X-Men flicks, even the ones that other people don't like. But First Class is just incredible. And that's Matthew Vaughn. So those are the films of Matthew Vaughn. As I said at the start of the episode, you've probably seen a lot of his work, if not all of it, even if you don't know his name. What an incredible filmography this guy has. I love Matthew Vaughn's work. I can't wait to see what he does next. Even though I joked about them being more Kingsman films than we need, I'll be there checking out those Kingsman films for sure. Because I'll keep supporting this filmmaker. I think he's a wonderful storyteller. I think he's a very unique brand, a very unique blend of comedy and action that very few can come near. I think it's a really good work. So again, before we wrap up the show, I will go through my order one more time from 8th to 1st. In 8th place, The King's Man. In 7th place, Kingsman: The Golden Circle. Argyle is 6th. Layer Cake is 5th. At 4th place, we have Stardust. And then our top 3, the 3 best films he's ever made. Kick-Ass at 3rd place. Kingsman: The Secret Service in 2nd. And at number 1, X-Men First Class. Thank you for listening in as always. If you have your own thoughts and opinions, please sound off in the comments, DM me on Instagram, let me know what you think. Did I get it right? Did I get it wrong? There is no right or wrong because it's all just taste. And let me know if you're a Matthew Vaughn fan, because I think, we need to be vocal about how much we love the work of Matthew Vaughn. There'll be another episode next week, another ranking of directors' films. I keep thinking of more directors to add to this, so we're going to keep this going for quite a while. But until then, as I say every week on this podcast, guys, I was a teenage film snob, but I'm trying to be better. I'll see you next week.